Welcome back to episode 3 of the Burt and Urbin show. We did not have a recap last week, so we're going to get right into last week's games. Are there any key games from the college game that you want to just take a quick look back at?
One quick one that I want to take a look at is Penn State versus Auburn. I watched that game like many people did, and that one was a really good game, whiteout game, which we predicted would result in a Penn State win. Very entertaining game, very close game, but in the end, Penn State was able to pull through, and that was a fun one. If you have anything to say.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from that game is Penn State might be a contender in the Big Ten, but we really don't know how good Auburn is.
Mm-hmm.
Another quick game I want to recap is the Michigan State-Miami game. Great showing for Michigan State. Miami kept punching and Michigan State kept punching back, and then Miami just stopped punching and Michigan State just kept going.
Yeah, it was very bend don't break. By halftime, very close, but in the second half, you can tell Michigan State was the better conditioned team, and they really came out rocking in the second half. Showed that they can both pass and run the ball. I thought that was very telling.
Yeah, it was. I think we asked the question last week if that was a statement win for Mel Tucker if he won, and I do think it ended up being that with the win.
Yeah, I happen to agree.
And then the last game I want to recap from last week is the Florida-Alabama game. The biggest thing I thought from that one is it proves that Alabama is beatable, I believe. It's just going to depend if somebody can top what Florida put out on Saturday.
Yeah, I think I did not think that Florida would be able to keep up with this Alabama offense, and yet they were. And I'll be honest, I thought this Alabama team would not be close to being competed with in the regular season. So that really shocked me, but I don't know who else in this schedule will be able to do what Florida did.
The only two teams I can really think of right now are Ole Miss and Texas A&M, but other than that, it's looking like the only team that might beat Alabama is Florida again in a possible SEC championship game. Let's get into this weekend slate. Let's start off with the game that is here in East Lansing at 7 o'clock, strike the stadium. Michigan State versus Nebraska. Michigan State is a 5-point favorite, which is a very stinky line. It does not make sense at all. What do you think is going to be the biggest takeaways from this game that Michigan State needs to look at?
I think the biggest takeaway will be that this Nebraska team is better than most people, I think, thought they were. I think the line is set there for a reason. While I do think it's very slim, especially for a home team, I think a lot of people are underestimating how they've been playing as of late. So, and as for Michigan State, if they can go in and handle business, and even if it's not pretty, I mean, if they can get the job done, I think it says a lot about, how they react when they come off of big wins. Because now everyone's saying, hey, look at this Michigan State team. They're ranked. They have some good wins. And if they can respond to that with another win on top of it, I think it'll just prove that this team is legit.
Yeah, I think the crowd's going to be a big factor if Michigan State can pull off the strike stadium, which they have before. It should be a very exciting game. I think a key for Nebraska is they have to find a way to stop Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, and no one has had success doing so yet this season. So we'll see how they pan out with that.
Yeah, like you said, Nebraska, they looked really decent against what we don't really know is if it's a decent Oklahoma team or if they're just good. But yeah, it should be an interesting game no matter what.
Yes, for sure.
Let's move on to another game on Saturday. This one is at noon. Notre Dame versus Wisconsin. That one's in Chicago at Soldier Field. I believe the biggest storyline is Jack Cohn, who transferred from Wisconsin, is now the starting quarterback for Notre Dame. And I feel like that is going to be a big factor in the game on Saturday.
And when you look at this game, especially the Notre Dame team, they have not been playing as good as I think many people think they should be. They've been in some very close matchups against teams that I have viewed to be not great, that they should be winning big time against, and they're not. So I think this one will be a very defensive matchup, especially when you look at historically, Wisconsin teams are always good on the defensive side of the ball. So I think this is going to be a low scoring game. Whatever team can get their offense going early will probably win this one.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this is just a repeat of the Penn State-Wisconsin game with how much of a defensive matchup that game was. Like you said, Notre Dame had some really bad wins, if that makes any sense. They went to overtime against the Florida State team that just looks absolutely terrible right now. They barely beat a Toledo team who lost to Colorado State last weekend. Colorado State's one of the worst teams in the FBS. So I think it's going to be an interesting matchup, but I do think this game will be more defensive than offensive.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a pick for the game?
I'm going to go with it's hard because it's at a neutral site.
Yeah.
These games shouldn't be at a neutral site. This should be at one of the campuses. Yeah. But I think I'm going to go with Wisconsin because I don't really know how good Notre Dame is.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Wisconsin. I think this one's a coin toss. It can really go either way, but I think I'm leaning towards Wisconsin right now.
Let's move on to another game. This one's in the 3:30 window, another one at a neutral site. Texas A&M, Arkansas. This is the Southwest Classic at Jerry's World in Arlington. Before we get into the game, let me do my fun fact of the week. Since this is the Southwest Classic, I went into the archives and found some old Southwest Conference fun facts. So back in 1994, Texas A&M was undefeated in the conference and overall. They went 10-0-1 on the season. However, this was back in the day when there were like TV bans and bowl bans and recruiting bans and postseason bans. Because of recruiting violations, I mean, that's a whole different story for another day. Mm-hmm. The Southwest Conference and paying athletes. So since they won the conference, they technically couldn't win the conference, even though they were undefeated. So the title ended up being split between Texas, Baylor, TCU, Texas Tech, and Rice. All four finished the conference at 4-3. Texas Tech ended up being the technical conference champion. They went 6-6, and they went on to Cotton Bowl because that was the bowl that the Southwest Conference champion went to. They only got there because they had the longest Cotton Bowl drought. The last time they played there was 1938, and that tie that Texas A&M had, they tied against SMU, who went 19-1 on the season. That is my fun fact of the week.
Wow.
So let's just quickly talk about this Texas A&M Arkansas game. Arkansas being led by KJ Jefferson. He looks really good. I think we need to have a discussion on if Arkansas is looking like a maybe New Year's Six contender team.
I think they look good, but I'm not sure if they're a New Year's Six team. I think the further you get into the season, you're going to find that a lot of teams are going to look better than Arkansas. I mean, I think at least 6 teams are going to look better than them by the end of the season. As for where they're ranked, I could see them getting through the season with maybe in the top 15, but I'm not sure that they can be that high up.
Yeah, I think it's all going to depend on the season because they're in a very difficult SEC West. You got a very good Ole Miss team. You obviously have Alabama. Mm-hmm. You have an Auburn team. We're not really sure how good they are. Obviously, Texas A&M, who they're playing this weekend, they are ranked 7th in the nation, I believe. But for Texas A&M, They're on their backup quarterback, Zach Calzada. Their starting quarterback got injured last week, and now it is Calzada's job. It will be interesting to see how he handles the pressure.
Yeah, that's a big time loss for Texas A&M, especially with a promising looking start to the season. It really does depend on how well their backup plays. If he doesn't play very well, I think this will be an easy win for Arkansas. But if he's able to manage the game, rely on the running backs and maybe some shorter, simpler passing concepts, maybe they pull it out. But I think Arkansas will win this one.
Yeah, like you said, I think it's all going to depend on the quarterback play on both sides. If the Texas A&M defense can stop KJ Jefferson, this is going to be a fight for Arkansas. But if Zach Calzada comes out and does not look good at all, I think the Arkansas defense is just going to basically run him over.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Let's move on to another game this weekend. This one is also in the 3:30 window. This one's not at a neutral site. Michigan versus Rutgers. I would say Rutgers is one of the bigger surprises of this season so far. They started off 3-0 with wins against Temple, Syracuse, and Delaware. Those are obviously not amazing teams, but for Rutgers to be at 3-0, that speaks to the rebuild that Greg Schiano is doing.
Yes, I think they look very good. However, this Michigan team is going to run them over.
Michigan runs.
Yeah. A lot. They're gonna ground and pound and tire out this defense like they have the last 3 weeks, and I think it might be I think it'll be a blowout, but I could very well see them competing, and if they compete, it shows how well this is truly going. Because, like we said, those first 3 wins, not overly compelling, but they are wins. So if they can compete with a team like Michigan, I think it really goes to show how well the rebuild is going.
Yeah, Noah Vedral, the quarterback for Rutgers, he's looked really decent so far this season. He was their quarterback last year, but last year with COVID year and everything, you just never know. But like you said, if Rutgers can stay in this game, I think that speaks a lot to what Greg Schiano has done. He obviously came in earlier than Mel Tucker, but they did both come in the same season.
Yeah.
I believe he got hired in like December, so he did have some time before COVID. Mel Tucker did not. I believe those two should be top contenders for Big Ten Coach of the Year if they can keep the rebuild as they're doing right now.
Yeah, on schedule.
Yes,
I agree.
Looking at the numbers for this game, Michigan is favored by 20.5. If Rutgers can stay within that, I think that's a huge win for them.
Yeah, and I very well think they could do that.
Let's move on to one more college game. Oklahoma State, Kansas State. We are just talking about this for my fun fact of the week, number 2.
Ooh.
We got 2 fun facts this week. Kansas State will open Big 12 play on the road for the 21st time in the 26-year history of the Big 12. If scheduling was really randomized, which it's not, I mean, the odds of this actually happening are 1 in 799.
Yeah, that's not chance.
Yeah. One more quick thing.
This is a very fun fact.
Thank you. One more thing before we do head on to the NFL. Is Ohio State still the front runner for the Big Ten championship?
I think they are the front runner. However, I think teams like Michigan, Iowa, possibly MSU, I think those teams could very well compete for a spot. I think it's a closer race than most people think it is. Stroud is not looking his best. He's not even playing against Akron. I think the Big Ten will be a very close race this season.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. They're still the front runner as of now, but they haven't looked great. They
Yeah.
struggled against a Tulsa team that's not good.
Yeah, I definitely think Michigan or Penn State can pull off a win against this Buckeyes team.
Okay, let's move on to the NFL. Are there any games that you quickly want to recap from last week before we move on to this week?
Last week, I'd like to touch on Rams Colts. Of course, big storyline out of that one was Carson Wentz injury.
Both ankles.
Yes, he somehow managed to do that, thanks to Aaron Donald. But that's the big storyline. However, I would like to point out that this Rams defense did not look very good up until they got an interception on Jacob Eason. And maybe if Carson Wentz was healthy and in that spot, they drove a little bit, but there was no chance once he got into the game. So, but the Rams were able to pull through. Big win for them, stay undefeated in the season.
Yeah, I think another big storyline coming out of that game is the Stafford Cup connection. They just seem to be hitting it off right now. We'll talk about them when we preview their game this week. But so far, the Stafford era is going well in LA.
Yes.
Another game I want to talk about from last week was game of the year material. You never know. Kansas City against Baltimore on Sunday Night Football. That was a very exciting game up until the end. Just overall throughout, it seemed like it was kind of like the Michigan State game. Just punches kept being thrown at each other.
Yeah. And with that one, I really thought the game was over after Lamar threw his second interception. He did not look good in that first quarter. And for him to be able to bounce back from that, I think was a big step in the right direction for him. Because in the past, when he's made mistakes, he gets down on himself and he tries too hard to come back. But he stayed composed. He did what he needs to do. And they were able to get a win when I did not think that was very possible at all.
Yeah, I think that was a big shocker for me. That was the Chiefs' loss. I mean, Baltimore is a good team. The question is, how will they hold up the rest of the year? Obviously, injuries have been a huge problem for them. But overall, that was just a great game to watch.
Yes. The one thing I would like to point out, too, I think there is cause for concern for this Kansas City defense. They did not look very good. If they want to try to get to the Super Bowl again, they definitely need to up their defensive game. It did not look good. Yeah,
I mean, they didn't look amazing week 1 against the Browns. They didn't look good week 2 against the Ravens. It's got to be a bounce back game this weekend for them.
Yes, for sure.
One more game I want to look at from last week. We'll just quickly touch on the Lions-Packers Monday night game. I mean, the Packers looked to be the Packers again.
Yeah.
But it was against the Lions. Once again, the winners of the Monday Night Football game are the Manning brothers. They've more than doubled their viewers. I think it was 1.89 million, which we did say was probably a very good possibility last week. As the Lions fan here, any comments on the Lions?
Yeah, I thought there was hope in the first half. Goff looked really good. But I also think that says something about the Packers defense. I think this defense really needs to step up. And then in the second half, the Lions just collapsed. I mean, the Packers just maintained time of possession. They scored, and then you had one turnover on a muffed snap. And that was pretty much ball game at that point. That one really was a battle between the offenses because either defense was not getting any stop at all. So I think it was a good showing for the Packers offense.
Yeah, and then another big factor from that game was the rain in the second half. Jared Goff had that awful fumble where he was just like that, and the ball just flew out. I believe that was in the fourth quarter. Yeah, I mean, the Packers look to be the Packers again. We'll see what they look like this week on Sunday Night Football. So let's do a quick look back at the Thursday night game, which was Houston, Carolina. Biggest story, Christian McCaffrey gets his annual injury that fantasy owners just freak out about. It's looking like he's going to be out a couple of weeks, which will turn into a couple of months. That's why you never draft Christian McCaffrey in fantasy. But what were some other things you took away from that just almost terrible game to watch?
Yeah, I thought the biggest storyline from this one was how Sam Darnold would play. And I think everyone is agreeing after this game that it was never Sam Darnold's fault. He didn't play great. He didn't have any passing touchdowns, but he had 300 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, that's what you need to do to win. He can manage a game very well. I thought he looked really comfortable in the pocket at points. I thought that was very telling. The Panthers defense really kind of suffocated the Texans. But Sam Darnold, if he continues under this, I think he'll continue to improve. He'll get better. And I still think this is very well could be a wild card team.
I completely agree with you on the wild card part. I think another big factor was Davis Mills in his first game as a starter. He didn't look great.
Yeah. But he also didn't look bad like most backups.
Yeah, I agree with that. He looked okay. I don't think he was the cause for them losing.
No.
And I don't think he should be blamed for them losing. I don't really have anything else on that game. It was just poor.
It was kind of boring.
It's your normal Thursday night football.
Yes. The most exciting night of football every week.
Yeah. They don't write songs saying waiting all day for Thursday night.
Exactly.
Let's get into some of the previews for this weekend's game. Let's start off with Kansas City hosting the Chargers this weekend. A battle between two very good teams in the AFC West. This is obviously Justin Herbert versus Patrick Mahomes. What could be a very developing rivalry. You never know.
Yeah.
Should be a very interesting game to watch this weekend.
Yes, I'm really excited to watch the matchup between Justin Herbert and this Chiefs defense, especially like we talked about. This Chiefs defense has not been doing great against the offenses that they have faced so far. So I'm really interested to see how Justin Herbert performs. But also, another key to this game is when looking at the Chargers is, can this team not commit penalties at the wrong time? That killed them against Dallas. They should have won against Dallas if it weren't for like 2 or 3 dumb penalties on scoring plays and stuff like that. So if they can get rid of their penalty problem, I think they can compete. But like I said, it comes down to that Chiefs defense, what they're able to do.
Yeah, obviously we know what Patrick Mahomes can do. It's going to be a real test for that Chargers defense too this weekend with all the weapons that Mahomes has. I think that might be game of the weekend material. It's just going to depend on how both defenses play, basically.
Yes, for sure.
Let's before we move on, Kansas City is favored by 6.5. That's a number that I probably wouldn't touch, but I could see the Chiefs cover.
Yeah, that's a tricky number. I don't even know what I would go with on that one.
Yeah, let's move on to your team, the Detroit Lions, facing the Baltimore Ravens this weekend. Baltimore's a 7.5-point favorite. The Lions' biggest problem on defense has been the run defense. And you got Lamar Jackson, the most mobile quarterback in the NFL. Some call him a running back, It's going to be a huge test for the Lions defense to stop him this weekend.
Yes. And as a Lions fan, I'm really thinking that this Ravens offense, especially coming off of a huge win like that, they're going to be ready. They might run for 300 yards. I can totally see it happening. The only bright spot of this Lions team has been the offense, and it's been very spotty, very iffy. So I think Ravens probably cover 7 points.
I mean, if you take the second half against the 49ers and the first half against the Packers, the Lions have played one complete game so
Yes,
far this
they
season.
have.
This kind of seems like a game that the Lions just win out of nowhere. Like just one of those stupid wins that they have. Like it always seems to happen once a year. They beat a team that they should not be even competing with. We also got to factor in the Ravens coming off a huge win on Sunday night. You never know. Ford Field a little quiet at 1 o'clock on Sundays. Might come in a little sleepy. I think the Lions are going to win? No. Can I see the Lions win? Yes, because it's the Lions.
All right. If you say so.
I mean, that's all I got to say about that. But yeah, like the offense is iffy at best.
Yeah.
The defense is not good. They need a lot of help on defense. I do think that will be what they address in the first round of the NFL draft, which is obviously a long ways away.
Yes.
They just need a lot of help on defense.
They really do.
Let's move on to my Cleveland Browns hosting the Chicago Bears this weekend. Justin Fields making his first start for the Bears. Baker Mayfield had the shoulder injury last week, came back in, they won. I don't know. Justin Fields did not look great coming in relief of Andy Dalton last weekend. This is going to be a very interesting game.
Yeah, I think the Browns did very well against the Texans. And really, I think this comes down to how Justin Fields plays. And like you said, he did not look great in his time on the field. I don't think he'll look great right away, but I think he'll be an upgrade from Dalton.
Yeah, the Browns are favored by 6.5. That's another sketchy number. Like I don't really know what to do with it there, because we don't know how Fields is going to play.
Yeah,
the Browns defense hasn't been all it's been hyped up to so far this season. If they can go to their hyped up mode basically and be like the best defense in the NFL, Justin Fields is going to have a terrible day. But I don't see that happening. I see Justin Fields possibly having a very decent day and maybe leading the Bears to victory. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very excited to look forward to this one. I think the Bears will pull through. But yeah, seeing how Justin Fields performs, especially seeing how this QB class from the previous draft has performed, has just been very interesting this season. One of the better drafts. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how that one turns out.
Let's move on to another possible game of the weekend. The Rams go home to SoFi, facing off against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay is favored by 1.5. I feel like this is going to be a great game to watch, and the battle between Stafford and Brady should be very interesting to watch.
Yes, and especially in his time with the Lions, they never had success against the Patriots when they faced, and then especially was it last year or the year before, they faced the Buccaneers and got obliterated.
That was last year.
Yes. So if Stafford can pull through, show off like he has been showing off, I think that'd be kind of career defining in a way, especially considering the way he has been with the Lions. But I mean, I'm thinking this could be game of the year.
Game of the year.
Yes.
You never know.
You never know. I also think that this game could very well be the NFC Championship game down the line. And this could be, just the first matchup of a potential another one. So I'm really interested to see who the better team is early in the season. And then that'll be interesting to watch for later down the line.
Yeah, I think this is the closest that Matthew Stafford has come to a playoff game without playing a playoff game. Obviously, he has, I believe it's 3 playoff starts, and he lost all 3. This is the closest to a playoff game, but in the regular season, basically, like you said, this could be a NFC Championship preview. this could be a divisional round.
Mhm.
You never know. Maybe
Yeah.
super wild card weekend.
Yeah.
It's a playoff preview. We'll just
Exactly.
leave it at that.
I would also like to point out that I did see that this is Stafford's third time ever starting a season 2-0. Third time ever. So he'd only had 2 with the Lions.
I mean, that's not a shocking number knowing the Lions.
No, but it just goes to show what this man can do in a different organization.
Yeah. I don't really think Tampa Bay is looking ahead to next week's massive matchup, which we will talk about next week. That is a major game of the year type material.
Game of the year.
It's gonna. I think this Rams game is going to be a very close game, and we talked about it earlier. I think this game is going to depend on both defenses.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Let's move on to the Sunday night game this week. San Francisco hosting Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers going back home technically on a team that passed on him with the first overall pick in 2005. Team he might want to go to. You never know. The 49ers are surprisingly favored by 3.5. This game should be very interesting. We need to see what the Packers do. Do they go back to the Saints game Packers, or did they go to the Lions game Packers?
Yeah, I think the Packers offense continues its ride up, gets its momentum back, and I'm really surprised that the 49ers are favored right now. However, I think the 49ers have not looked great this season. They got the win over the Lions and they got their win over Philadelphia. 2 teams very questionable. And I truly think that this Packers offense will just have a very good afternoon, despite a very good 49ers defense.
Yeah, it's like you said, the Lions game, they really fell apart. They were lucky to survive that game. They did not look good against the Eagles last week. An Eagles team that I don't think is good at all.
Yeah.
I still think they got to figure out stuff on offense and defense, the Eagles. And I don't even like the 3.5 number. Like I figured the Packers would be favored by a small number. That 3.5 just throws me off.
Yeah.
It's just it's going to depend on how Aaron Rodgers looks, basically.
Yes, completely.
Do you have any pick for that game?
I'm gonna have to pick the Packers. I think the Packers will win that one. I don't think Jimmy G's looked great this season, so.
Do we see Trey Lance this week?
Maybe he might take a snap. Who knows?
Yeah. Do you have any other NFL games you're looking forward to this weekend?
No, not off the top of my head. This season has been very good so far, so I'm really looking forward to that Bucs Rams matchup. But that's the big one for me this weekend. But the ones that we've covered are kind of the key ones in my mind.
One more NFL topic before we move on. The news came out today that Super Wildcard weekend. The last game of the week is going to be on Monday night. What are your thoughts about that?
I really liked how they did Super Wildcard weekend. I'm really excited that it's back. I think it's like a normal week of. Well, you had Saturday too.
Yep.
So I don't know. I just love Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That's just so perfect. I think they should continue to do this going forward. I just love it.
I think one of the big factors for the NFL finally moving this is because the Monday after the wild card weekend was always the college football national championship. Now with everything being moved a week back, that gave the NFL that opportunity. I find it interesting that the NFL didn't say that ESPN/ABC were hosting the Monday night game.
Yeah.
They've obviously hosted it since its inception in the 60s. So it would be interesting to see a Monday night game not on ESPN/ABC.
Yeah. That would be weird. Monday night. No ESPN.
Yeah, so the schedule is you got the 4:15 game on Saturday and then 8 o'clock game on Saturday. Then Sunday it will be a 1, a 4, and an 8. And then on Monday it would be an 8th game. So I think the big question about it is, does this create a disadvantage for the team that wins on Monday, possibly playing on, I doubt the schedule makers will do it, but possibly playing on Saturday?
Yeah, that is a little tricky. But like you said, I think they have to make it fair, so I don't think they would schedule them then. But if they did, that does ruin a game plan. That's a whole extra day to watch film or go over the scheme for the week, or so that's real. That day is really important. So
yeah, it will. I doubt it. I'm assuming that the team that wins on Monday will end up playing on Sunday. It's just, if they don't, that's just not right.
Yeah.
Before we leave, I think we got to do something. We have to take a quick kick around the pitch. We'll put the ball up here right on the Grey Cup, the greatest trophy in all of sports. Like I said, 5 games from the 5 leagues, the 5 biggest leagues in Europe. This weekend, we do not have a game from France because the slate is absolutely terrible. So I decided to pick out one from the EFL Championship, which is the English second tier. So we'll start off with that one. Saturday, 10 o'clock, ESPN Plus, Sheffield United, Derby County. Derby County went into administration this week, which is basically just saying that they can't pay off their debts and they're basically claiming bankruptcy. They've taken a 12-point deduction, so they are now have -2 points and are bottom of the table. I think the biggest thing here is going to be how Derby responds to that, because you never want those off-the-field issues coming onto the field, basically. Just be really interesting to see how that plays out. Let's go to Italy. Inter Milan, Atalanta, not Atlanta, as in Georgia, but Atalanta. This is Saturday at noon on Paramount Plus, obviously during college football. Biggest note I have here is that Atalanta has lost 5 of the last 7 Serie A away games at Inter. It should be an interesting game, though, because both teams are, even though it's early in the season, they are competing for Champions League spots. Let's go to Germany. Borussia Mönchengladbach versus Borussia Dortmund, Saturday, 12:30, ESPN Plus, another game that's in college football time. Dortmund have scored in their last 15 meetings against Gladbach since an 0-2 defeat in 2013, so I would say expect some goals in this game. Let's go to Spain. Real Madrid, Villarreal, Saturday, 3 o'clock, ESPN Plus, another game. A lot of these games are during college football. Biggest thing here is Madrid has scored 21 goals after their first 6 games this season. That is their best tally at this stage since the 1987-88 season when they had 26 goals. One more game. Let's go back to England. Premier League, Sunday, 11:30, NBCSN. This is not during the NFL, so my Tottenham Hotspur taking on Arsenal, the big North London derby. This is a huge rivalry game. Can be equated to like Yankees, Red Sox, Lions, Packers, Lions, Bears, Lions, Vikings, Browns, Steelers. Just, it's a big rivalry. After winning their first 3 games this year, 1-0, all 3 of them 1-0. Tottenham have lost 2 consecutive games, 3-0 each. They have never lost 3 consecutive matches by 3+ goals. So that will be a big thing to look at this weekend. Arsenal lost their first 3 games, and now they've won 2 straight. So it's going to be an interesting game. So that is your quick kick around the pitch. I'm sure you have something to say about it.
Football.
Do you have any other games you're looking at this weekend?
No, I think we kind of covered everything that I am looking forward to.
Okay. Thanks for watching. We kept this somewhat shorter this week.
Yes.
Just keep watching, I guess. We're going to we're gonna try to put out a video on Monday.
Yes.
We don't know what will happen. Maybe Tuesday, you never know.
Yeah.
So
We'll keep you on your feet.
yeah, exactly. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you like this. Hit that like button, share it with people if you did really like this. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.